Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the previous presentation. I hope I'm going to build somewhat on some of the points that you mentioned there. It's very good. My whole working life has been embedded in vocational educational training. So what I'm now in an academic institution trying to develop a technique for a solution, and hopefully I can take you that forward on that. I plan to do this presentation where I plan to go back to the 1860s in Victorian Britain to the start of the arts and crafts movement. I then plan to take you through where we are in the UK with arts and crafts, roll forward 165 years. I then plan to introduce my research to you, the methodology behind it, and what I'm trying to achieve. And then at the end, I plan to go back to the arts and crafts movement in the 1860s to see if what we've found there still resonates with what we're trying to achieve now. This is, for those of you that don't know, this is John Ruskin. He was, along with William Morris, was one of the instigators and influencers of a social movement that led to the arts and crafts movement in the UK in the 1860s. And that arts and crafts movement was born out of a frustration with industrialisation of goods and the loss of traditional craftsmanship. That traditional craftsmanship placed craftspeople at the heart of the process, and they felt that that process, the traditional craft people should be co-creators in the artistic and architectural process, not divorced from that process. One of Mr. Ruskin's got many quotes attributed to him. I don't come from a design element. This is about the actual practicalities of doing. So the highest rewards for a person's toil is not what they get for it, but what they become by it. And for me, that resonates with me as a person. And I'd like to ask the question, is the craftsmanship that was so revered by Ruskin and Morris at that time alive and flourishing today? I'm just going to provide you with some context and background. In the UK, we've got a rich architectural heritage. This is the Natural History Museum in central London. We've got Winchester Cathedral. All of those rely on traditional craft skills. And I'm going to use some terms that are historical, and I'm going to interchange those terms to bring them forward. We've got your traditional master to the left-hand side there. And then we've got what you would call your apprentice or trainee, or I'm going to refer to them as an emerging conservator, because my field is about the conservation of buildings. Unfortunately, in the UK, we're at a critical juncture with traditional crafts. We've got an ageing workforce where a large proportion of experienced practitioners that hold all that knowledge are actually due to retire or are retiring in the next 10 years. That creates a massive void in knowledge. That has created in itself some endangered crafts. We have what's called a red list of endangered crafts. This is one of them. This is what's called gauge brickwork, a very ornate way of dressing and carving brickwork with very fine joints. And it's recognised that within the next 10 years, if we don't get enough practitioners coming into that field, that as a practice will die and will no longer be available. We've got another problem that's compounding the knowledge transfer, and that's that younger generations no longer see traditional crafts repairing historic buildings as a viable alternative. They've fallen out of love with those traditional crafts. And we need to understand why if we're going to address those issues. Now, the challenge is to ensure that the knowledge that comes from the experienced practitioner is passed on to the emerging conservator or the apprentice or the trainee. Now, craft, as we've just experienced, craft expertise is tacit and not easily codified. It relies on hands-on learning. It's the materiality, it's the touch, it's the feel, it's the experience. It's often born around demonstration and imitation. So a demonstration would take place, and then someone that's learning would imitate that demonstration and learn from an experienced practitioner. And it's about the why and how of intricate techniques. About in 1966, Michael Poliani produced this quote, and it's so relevant in craft practice, and it's, "We know more than we can tell." And that refers to that tacit knowledge that you spoke about. It's very difficult. Tacit knowledge is that experience that you've acquired over many years, but find it very difficult to articulate. So how can we enhance knowledge sharing between experienced practitioners and new learners? And that forms the basis of my research and is the challenge for me. It's very clear that we need to innovate. If we don't innovate, we get left behind. But we've still got to maintain that connection with the past, because traditional crafts, particularly in my field, are embedded in the past, but they're still practiced today. The human mind is a wonderful thing. I'd like to share these terms, and if anyone could just give me a couple of words to describe what they mean in a speech. Self-explaining, conscious reasoning, free associating. Has anyone got any terms? They're all academic terms. Has anyone got any idea that we can round them up into one thing? I'm going to save you the pain. It's called talking to yourself. I've worked with many practitioners and craftspeople that talk to themselves, and they talk to themselves as a matter of reinforcement, trying to correct their problems. Some of you may do it yourself. I've done it before. You shouldn't feel guilty for doing it. They say most of the most intelligent people are those that talk to themselves. If we agree that we talk to ourselves as practitioners and craftspeople, why can't we adopt think aloud? Why can't we take that one stage further and put our thought processes out there, get them out in the open? Now, think aloud is a technique where someone verbalizes their thoughts whilst undertaking a practical task. Now, by verbalizing your thoughts, it's not choreographed, it's not scripted, it's just saying whatever comes into your mind as you undertake that task. It's utilized across a range of disciplines, and I'm going to use that as a basis to develop a technique for knowledge exchange in traditional crafts. Now, its application. Think aloud. Surgeons, when they undertake complex operations, they will think aloud so that those people around them get an understanding of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. It's been used in professional sports. For instance, a golfer practicing his golf swing will think aloud the process as he goes through that swing. And that allows him to focus on what he's doing. In classroom activities, in this instance in mathematics, a teacher in complex equations would think aloud, tell their thought processes as they're going through that complex equation. And that has been known to aid students. And in academic institutions, we've taken the think aloud account and adapted that in many sort of different disciplines. Before I go forward, my research focuses is very narrow focused about historic brick pointing, and it's something that I'm having affinity with and I've practiced all of my life. So I just need to explain to you what historic brick pointing is to enable us to move forward and provide context. This is an historic brick wall. The thin joints along there are the joints that hold the wall together. After time, they erode and they need replacing. When they need replacing, someone would clean out the joints and then feed some new mortar, in this case lime mortar, into the joints and end up with a new joint that enables the wall to live for another 100, 200 years without deterioration. Some of historic brick jointing joints are very complex. This is tuck jointing, and it's a very fine, detailed joint on how to change, and it's an optical illusion because if we look down here, we've got the open joints there. Someone has changed the joints to a very narrow joint to create the illusion that that brickwork is much finer than what it actually is. Now, I'm going to give you an example of a Think Aloud account. Now, this is, again, I'm just going to reiterate this, it's where practitioners verbalise their thought processes while undertaking a practical task. This is myself. I go up to a scaffold to remove some cementitious pointing on some historic brickwork. This brickwork dates from about 1750. Now, when I go up to take out this pointing, I've given no consideration to what I'm going to do. I haven't thought about it in any way. I just talk as I work, and it's interesting to see what actually comes out from there.
So this mortar here is all cement over pointing. The problem with that is it runs over the faces of the brick, and the edge of a brick called the arris is where all the moisture gets trapped and needs to escape through the joint. So what I'm going to do is try and start this pointing and take this cement pointing out with causing minimal damage to the brickwork behind. So all I do is just start by little taps to try and get in to the pointing. Now if it was too hard we'd use a different method, but on this one all I'm using is a tungsten tip chisel and a small hammer, and I'm going to work my way in to the joint. Once I've worked my way into the joint, I can then start to get the original back to the original pointing. So I'm there, I take off the cement pointing, I'm working in little bits at a time. As I move it back, I can then get back to the curves, the vertical joints. I do the same again, little taps to try and take the pressure off the side of the brick, and then I start by taking the joints out again. Once I've done that, I can then go deeper and cut out the original lime joints there. By getting deep inside, I want to be at least twice the thickness of the joint. And then at the end of it, what I'll then do is I'll use the chisel to square out the opening so that we've got a nice, neat housing for the new mortar to go into. And once we've finished that, we'll actually hoover the joint out to get any dust.
That is a traditional Think Aloud account. I've not thought about anything. I repeat myself several times. I correct myself. That, I believe, is a brilliant way of tapping into that tacit knowledge or that experience over a number of years.
So this mortar here is all cement over pointing.
It makes expert thinking explicit. It provides the why behind every action. It's problem solving in real time. And it promotes a feel for materials, and it bridges the experience gap. It feels as though someone's over your shoulder undertaking that. The benefits of Think Aloud accounts is it increases skills mastery. In terms of cognitive anchoring, it helps with hearing and seeing craft practices. It increases retention of techniques. It helps learners internalise reasons behind actions. And the long-term gain is that the learners can recall the why behind complex decisions. Now, from that is the basis for a technique that I've developed and I've been trialling. And this is called Think Aloud Knowledge Exchange. And it is set in 4 distinct phases. The first phase is a practitioner will undertake a video of a practical task. In terms of historic pointing, there are 5 stages in repointing historic wall. We look at one stage, one process of that. So an experienced practitioner would undertake a video and think aloud. That video would then get passed to an emerging conservator and downloaded to their phone, where they would then get to watch that video as many times as they want to recall that information. From then, the emerging conservator would then undertake a Think Aloud video themselves based on what they've seen. They would have had no experience of this previously. They've done it based on what they've seen. The next stage and the 4th stage is a discussion between the experienced practitioner and the emerging conservator to establish how much they've learned. And if they've met the key concepts of that video, they would then move on to the next video But if that actually didn't work, they would then go back to the original video and be able to revisit it. Now, what I'm going to do now is show you a couple of examples of an experienced practitioner, i.e. myself, with a video, and then I'm going to show you a short clip of an emerging conservator, what he has learnt from that video.
Here, what we've done, we've cut out the joints using our tungsten tip chisel and our hammer in the previous videos. Then we've wet it down with the sprayer, we've hoovered it out and we've wet it down, so we've mis-sprayed the joints as we've done in our previous video. Now what we're going to do is come to point. Now when we point, the first thing to notice on here, we've got different size joints. So we need to choose the right jointer for the joint. If we use this jointer, you can see there it's going to be too thick and that's going to actually smear the brickwork. So we want to probably come down to a smaller jointer that fits in that gap of the brickwork to make it work. Then what we're going to do, we're going to use our hawk. So this is the hawk that I like using, just a large standard hawk. And I'm going to put some muck onto there. Now, our pointing muck we've knocked up before, and remember previously we said we want to make it sort of stiff enough so it just makes into a ball, but not too wet, because if we make it too wet, we're going to actually smear the faces of the brickwork. Now when we point, we always point from a top down to bottom process. The reason we do that is so that if we drop any mortar down, we're not going to drop it over to the new work that we've already pointed. So we start from the top and come down. Now all I'm going to do is I use my jointer to push against the mortar. So I hold the hawk at an angle and I push against it, and then I get a bead of mortar on there that I can actually put into the joint. Now if I'm right-handed, I will start from the right, and in this case I'm doing the bed joints first and we'll do the vertical, the perp joints afterwards. So what I do, I get my bead of mortar and then I start to fill the joint up.
You will note that all these videos are done in real time on a construction site. They're not done in a workshop, they're not done in a sanitised environment. You've got noise above, so they're done in real time. What I'm now going to show you is a short clip of an emerging conservator who has watched that video a number of times, and this is their Think-Aloud account.
This pointing here, when I've sprayed earlier, this is all dry up so I can point on it. So I'm going to get some muck onto my tray, my fork, push it down. With the pointers, I'm going to choose the correct one because I don't want to use a big one because it won't fit and it'll just smear the brickwork. So I'll start at the top here and we'll push it in. I want it flush with the top of the brick and the bottom of the brick. I don't want it on the edges of the brickwork. When I finish like a little section, I'll just scrape that little bit off and put it back on my...
So that's an emerging conservator. That's his Think-Aloud account based on the previous video he's watched. Some of the feedback that I've got from these videos from the emerging conservators, this is a good way to do it, very informative. It shows you what doing and tells you at the same time. I like it. It's short and sweet. I feel as though I'm there with you. I can see what you're doing with your hands and how you hold the tools. That helps me. Having it on my phone is good for me. If I get stuck, I just go and watch the video again. It's been a very positive and very powerful experience for them. In conclusion, just a quick recap. At the heart of traditional craft skills is the experienced practitioner and the emerging conservator. Think-Aloud accounts can be adapted to be a new pedagogical tool that provide deep insights and improve craft learning. And hopefully it can tap into those younger generations, the digital media that they use, and engage with them. Now, if we go back to 1966, Mr. Poliani said, "We know more than we can tell." I'm hoping that we can tell more than what we know. And just my final thoughts. This is William Morris, the key instigator with Mr. Ruskin of the arts and crafts movement in the UK in the 1860s. And through this, I hope you've seen that we're developing a very powerful tool that hopefully will re-engage young people to fall in love with traditional crafts again, meeting their needs and their diverse needs. And I'm just going to leave you with one last quote to finish off, and that is, "The past is not dead, it is living in us and will be alive in the future that we are now helping to make." Thank you.
Is there any questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much for this presentation. So I know you've experimented the Think-Aloud method on some trainees, but were you able to experiment it on an official school setting, maybe?
I'm just moving to a second phase. I've undertaken it on with 20 people within vocational education, and I've trialled it in practice on construction sites. My next phase is to try it with younger people within a school, but also to take it to adults, because I think we get too caught up with framing an age group to a skill, and it's lifelong learning. So we need to approach that to younger people, and we also need to approach it to people that are possibly looking at an alternative employment or retraining. So I'd like to cover it across the spectrum as well.
I think that's something we should look into in Mosaic. I was thinking. Yeah.
I'm going to say this, aren't I, because I'm embedded into it. But if you look, we have a problem in the UK in the sense that 25% of people that are coming into construction have a varying degree of learning difficulties. I've done a lot of research into videos and their timeframes. To get a video that can meet someone with ADHD, attention deficit disorder, you're looking at between 3 to 5 minutes. Anything beyond that and they will switch off. All my videos go between 3 to 4 minutes, and they have 3 key concepts within the video that they can learn. So they are very switched on to that, and it feeds into their notion of how they learn and their learning styles. I urge you to try a Think-Aloud account because it's a very powerful tool, and you will be shocked how much you can wax lyrical when you're talking.
If I can, my question would be, well, you mentioned some of the challenges right now, but what other challenges there exist with this technique? Do you see something that we are talking about the importance of this and using this in our project as well, but what are the challenges that we should look and we should avoid, or things that we should take into consideration when we are talking about this technique?
If I'm honest, please don't try and sanitize it. Please do not try and create the perfect environment. Let it happen. Do it where the practice takes place. Don't try and clear the room of noise or anything, because when we practice as practitioners, we are surrounded by noise. So for me, that adds to the actual account. It gives authenticity to what you're doing. Touching on the previous presentation, one of the problems, potential problems, is engaging with experienced practitioners and trying to get them to part with their knowledge. It's what you were saying earlier on, and it's a big problem. I believe that we have a duty to share, but not all people follow my same philosophy on that. So we need to engage, and if we need to tap in, if we want to a practice to continue for a period of time and be shared and other people to enjoy it, we have to be willing to share our knowledge at all stages of the process and not hold on to it, because if we hold on to it, we die very miserable people.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. To continue the traditional practice, is it easily to adapt the technique
to new construction, like contemporary architecture, or is it more for renovation or things like that?
The technique that I'm using can be used anywhere, and literally anywhere, on anything that you use it for. I'm using it in a specific field to meet the needs of an industry that is a critical juncture where we are losing experienced practitioners and not getting those younger generations in. And if we don't innovate and tap into the needs of both, then we are going to be trying to reinvent the wheel at a later date. And that's quite a sad state of affair for me. But I think you can adapt this technique to whatever method or whatever practice you want to use.
Your method is for educational course.
My
real question is: are you working on a research program around an observatory of the savoir-faire?
I'm a PhD candidate at University College London. So if I've had this idea for a while, and unfortunately, I'm going to be very cynical here, but if you get the word doctor prefix in your name, it gives you more standing and gives your idea more validity, and more people will listen to you. So I've been very cynical there. But so I've embarked on a 5-year program. I'm 3 years in, and I try and sell myself as a bridge between vocational education and academia. So I try and create that bridge.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a question regarding the video process and thinking aloud, which mostly relies also on imitative skills. Do you think that like a next step that is possible for that is to also communicate more, let's say, theoretical, like even literary background to it? When you explain something, you can also like mention who wrote on it. For instance, I think when you mention Polanyi, it also echoes to Tim Ingold. Yeah, and I think it also helps to valorize and bring in more value to the work of craftsmen.
I've tried to, obviously I've had to go through quite a few hoops with my research, so I'm very familiar with Tim Ingold, but I go back to Polanyi because that just sums up in very short. But Tim Ingold, there's another person called Trevor Merchant, who's produced some excellent work as well, and it's those people that are giving validity to craftsmanship. But I suppose in some ways I'm trying to approach it from the practitioner perspective up. I don't want to get too caught, because the whole idea is I've got to try and disseminate that to practitioners, and if we make it too academic, there's a possibility that they will switch off and not engage in the process.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really intriguing. My question is, as a practitioner, that you showed this think aloud method when everything goes right, because you know what to do. But you know, when you start, you can make thousands of mistakes. How you address these, how to fix those mistakes that happen?
Are you looking for me as an experienced practitioner, or the emerging conservators?
If the emergent, they start and do some mistakes, how you inform them how to fix these mistakes?
Firstly, I get very excited about mistakes, because we never learn unless we make mistakes. If everything goes perfect, then we're heading for a big fall. The beauty of this technique is they have this video uploaded to their phone, so they can review that video as many times. And we go through this debriefing process so we get to understand how they felt about the processes, the problems that they encountered, the areas that they didn't understand. And if need be, we can revisit and make another video that breaks down those 3 possible concepts into one concept, and then start building bridges to enable them to learn in longevity. I hope that's answered your question. I don't know.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, we have another question.
That was so brilliant. Thank you. Oh, there's another question.
Yeah. Pardon?
Is it okay? Yeah. That was so brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely loved it. I think what really is the accountability of the apprentice to make the video back to you. So what we have at the University of Technology in Sydney, I'm on a fashion degree. And so students just pounce on their iPhones and video demonstrations. And then because it's, in a sense, a craft, they go to YouTube, there's lots of videos on things like that. But it's the accountability of videoing it back to you, I think, is the difference. And he had so much skill, like his dexterity and his fine motor skills. He was so careful. I'd employ him to point.
The person you've just seen, I've been engaged with for 3 years. He failed at school, didn't get any qualifications. He has ADHD and couldn't process any information whatsoever. It's built his confidence, and that's the most important thing. But just if I could just quickly touch on your YouTube videos. I've analysed numerous YouTube videos relating to my field of inquiry. And what I found by my analysis is those videos don't have much content on knowledge transfer or practical skills. There's no problem solving, it's self-promotional. And a YouTube video is made to promote yourself and your skill. You very rarely see someone make a problem and talk through the process of how they've got over those problems. So if you take that YouTube video, give it to your average person, I looked at the remit is if I gave that to the person you see, could he reproduce that based on that video? And the answer is no, because there's no discussion about materiality, how the material should be soft, wet, or how you apply, you push. It's very limited. The job knowledge and practical skills within there and transferability is virtually non-existent. There are some very good ones out there, but they're in the minority. Majority of YouTube videos are purely self-promotional.